Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Building Dashboard Templates in Reveal with Slingshot. We've done a webinar like this prior to this webinar where I kind of went through this, but I thought it was a good time to go through it again, just to continue to raise awareness about how easy it is to get started with Reveal on your dashboarding journey, but how you can use other tools from Infragistics to create and organize those dashboards when you start your proof of concept using Reveal. And then, of course, using Slingshot is a great tool to continue to use to build out all of your dashboards if you're delivering templates or pre-built dashboards to your end users. Again, my name is Jason Barris. I'm Senior VP of Developer Tools here at Infragistics. My email is jasonb@infragistics.com. And there's a couple links for you, revealbi.io and slingshotapp.io. You'll see those a few more times throughout today's presentation. So again, today's product focus is going to be Reveal as the embedded BI SDK that you're probably interested in. But if you are at this webinar, you're probably wondering, how can I use other tools to maybe accelerate building dashboard templates? I don't want to wait for my dev team to set up a server when we just get started with Reveal. So is there a better way to do this? And that's really where Slingshot comes into play, and you'll see that in today's demo. So with Reveal, the goal is to accelerate insights with self-service and embedded analytics in an easy-to-use SDK. There's a ton of webinars and how-tos on YouTube that we've already done, which really show how easy it is to get started with the Reveal SDK. You can have a server and a client up and running in the same day and then deploy out within a week. In fact, we're just wrapping up a POC with the customer that did start to finish in about a week. And that's about the third or fourth customer this year that knows what they want. They want to deliver embedded BI to their end users. They know what kind of data they have. They're ready to go. And Reveal is a great tool to do that. And then, of course, other POCs can take anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks when you get started with Reveal, but that's okay too, because a lot of times your data is not in a way, or it's not organized in a fashion that makes it easy to create dashboards. So you have to go through that effort. And you're going to see today, when I'm working with dashboards in Slingshot, my data is ready to go. So I've already gone through the work of normalizing that data, so I can easily do joins, I can create queries and things like that, and it just makes it easy to get started. But the whole point of using an embedded analytics SDK is that control. So we have servers for Java, Node.js, and .NET Core, and then of course our client is just JavaScript. We have a rich API in both the client and the server, which give you that control in what you're delivering to your customers. It doesn't feel like a bolted-on experience. It will really feel like it is a built-in experience in your application. And then, of course, if Slingshot is new to you, Slingshot is the all-in-one digital workplace boosting team results. It's a great tool. It has all kinds of great features. I'm going to show a little bit of that today in my demo. But if you really are looking for a tool that not only can deliver in-depth analytics on all of your operational data, but you want better collaboration, you maybe need task management, you want to have discussions with your team, you want to collaborate and share files, dashboards, and anything that you want, really, that's what Slingshot's all about. So it's a great tool that really does boost that level of productivity and team results across your organization. And today we'll just get a little bit of an intro to it. If you want more information on Slingshot, let me know and we can set up a demo. So with that, let's get right into our demo of using Reveal and Slingshot together to deliver dashboard templates to your customers. Here I am in Slingshot. In order to get Slingshot, you can go to slingshotapp.io and go to the products drop-down and select downloads, and you can grab your Mac client, your desktop Windows client, or any of the mobile apps. I'm using WPF client, which is our desktop client on a Windows machine right now. I natively run a Mac, so I usually use the Mac client, but I record everything here in my Windows VM. So this is just basically what Slingshot looks like. I have up in the upper left my overview, all of my tasks that have been assigned to me or I've assigned to myself. I have a bunch of shared with me items. So these are all the dashboards or posts or discussions or anything that's actually shared with me across all of Slingshot. My Analytics is the embedded Reveal inside of Slingshot. So Slingshot uses Reveal to do its analytics. So I've got all of my recents. I can link into my data catalog, all the items created by me. I have my getting started area, and then all of the data sources that I'm using for my dashboards. My pins are actually all of the pins that I want to keep track of for myself. And then, of course, my cloud storage is my cloud storage account. I am logged in as Miriam Graham, which is one of my sample accounts. And then you can see on the left-hand side here, I have a bunch of different workspaces. Each one of these workspaces has an overview. It has projects, tasks, discussions, pins, and dashboards. Most of these are just samples, but marketing actually has a bunch of stuff going on here. So there's my workspace overview. I have several projects here in marketing. If I jump into the PPC management project, I can see what's happening with tasks, discussions. Looks like there's a bunch of discussions here on some dashboards. Just all the things that you need to actually get through the day with your teams. This is a great collaboration tool. It basically allows you to track every aspect of your business. I also have a chat with my team. I have notifications here of all the things that I need to be aware of or updates that happened across all of the workspaces. And then Emily is our AI assistant that has some help topics and videos and whatnot. But Slingshot is an amazing tool, and it really does boost your team's performance. I would highly recommend you check it out. But in the context of today's demo, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to My Analytics and highlight how I would work with Reveal. So I know that I need to roll out Reveal dashboards to my customers in a custom application. I could very easily do all of the stuff that I'm going to do here inside of Reveal, but I have to wait for all of the development to get done. What I want to do is start creating dashboards right away. So when my devs are done setting up Reveal, they can just start using those dashboards. So what I'm going to do first is add a data source. Both Reveal and Slingshot share data sources. So we have about 30 some data sources, from on-prem to cloud-based tabular data sources, things like data files, SharePoint, etc. Some different marketing, sales, CRM, SaaS applications, big data storage, REST, and then social accounts. I'm going to use Azure SQL, and I'm going to connect into my Azure SQL instance. It happens to already be added here, jbarris.database.windows.net. But if I was to add a new server, I would just add the server name and then my credentials, and then it would just connect in. So I already did that process. So I am just going to use my Northwind Cloud database and then select and continue. Now, one feature Slingshot has that Reveal does not is it has a data catalog. The data catalog allows you to store data sources and then modify like the names, maybe the field types into more friendly business names, different field types that you might want to use, but it makes it more friendly for your end user. So I'm going to go ahead and click Edit Details. And for my Northwind Cloud instance, I'm going to use the Customers table, and I'm going to use the Orders table, and I'm going to do a join, and then I'm going to create some dashboards off of that. But what I would like to do is I would like to make these names a little bit more friendly. So you can see here that as I change the names, I'm just going to add a space between these guys. The original name is underneath, and then the new name is on top. And what will happen is when I'm creating dashboards, these friendly names will show up. So the space will be there. It'll just look a little bit nicer. So here, postal code, and I can leave all of the other ones there. If I don't want my users to see like the fax number, I can hide that. I can hide the phone number. So we'll go ahead and hide those from the data editor. And then the other tables I'm probably going to use, maybe I'll use the employees table. So I'll just say title is this one. Birth date is good. Hire date, we'll add the space. And then the rest, home phone, add a space. Postal code, whoops, let's add a space to postal code. And that's good enough. Let's hide reports to and photo path. And I'll hit save. And I mean, that's good enough for me. I don't need to use any views or stored procedures. I'm going to go ahead and save and close. Now you'll see under databases, there's my Northwind Cloud that I just added. So now if I click Northwind Cloud, it brings me all to the same tables that I just saw in the data catalog. If I go to customers and I preview this data, you can see that the friendly names are in the headers. So I'm going to go ahead and select this data. Now I'm in the dashboard editor. However, I want to use orders and the employees table as well. So I'm going to hit plus, fields from another data source. I'm going to go back to my Northwind Cloud and I'm going to grab the orders table and I'm going to select the orders table and I want to join on the customer ID field. So customer ID, oh shoot, I grabbed the wrong field, sorry. Let's do a real-time change here. Go back to Northwind Cloud. I want the orders, not the order details. So let's select orders, that's better. And we want to do customer ID and customer ID on both of those. So once I have this, what I want to select is the order ID, the employee ID, the order date. We'll just grab a few fields here, useful stuff, and then you can see that the data is actually being blended here into a single table. So there's Alfke is multiple times because Alfke has multiple orders. So you can see there are the order IDs for Alfke. So I'll just join this data. Now I have my customers and I have my orders. Finally, I want to click the plus sign again, click fields from another data source. I want to grab the employees table and I'm going to select this and I want to join, if we scroll down, the employee ID, which is in the orders table with the employee ID here. And then I want to get the last name, first name, title. Oh, that's why they're title and title of courtesy. That's kind of important. There's the actual job title and then title of courtesy. So I messed that up in my data catalog, but that's okay. So now I have a data set essentially with 3 tables. Now let's start creating a dashboard with this. So first, why don't we grab customer ID and we'll grab country. So here I'll put country into the values and you can see I have the number of customers, but I'm not actually showing the country. So maybe country would be better served as a category and I can just put customer ID into values. And you can see here that I have all of the different countries shown. And in this case, I want a count of distinct rows because distinct means it's only going to count each item once. Now, this isn't the best display for countries, so why don't we do a more interesting visualization and we can do a map. So I'm going to grab the map and for my location, I am going to grab the country field. So let's go ahead and type in country. So I'll do country. The map type I want, we will use the world countries map. And then now we have the number of customers in each country, which is actually pretty cool. So customers per country, like so. And we will check this box. And now we're starting to create a dashboard. Let's give this dashboard a name, and we're going to call this customer analysis. And what I want to do is use the same data set, of course. So I'm going to duplicate this, and let's edit this. And I want to do a text view visualization, and we'll drag customer ID up to the top. We can leave country. We can add some other fields like region. And that's good enough. Basically, we just want a text field, and a lot of the regions are blank in this database, so I'm going to get rid of it. Maybe city is better. So Berlin is a nice field to display here. So this is fine. We'll just put customer info. Check the box. So there's my customer info. Let's make that go there. Let's duplicate this visualization. I'm going to edit this guy. We're going to change it to a text view. And what I want to do in my text view is I want to get the average freight for all of the orders. So that will be the sum, which is correct. And let's change this again to currency with the dollar symbol. We'll update that field. And let's call this average freight. And when you use a text visualization, you actually don't need, You don't need a label up here. It will just automatically grab all of the sums if you just put a value in. So now my value is 65,000. And in this case, what I want to do is do a couple additional 64.94K. If I go back to this and I go to my large number formatting, it's on auto now. I could do M, K, B, etc. I'll just leave it just like it is. And we'll do average freight. And let's make this one a little bit smaller like this. Let's duplicate this visualization. Whoops. Let's do a duplicate. And instead of average freight, let's see, is there another dollar value? No, there's not. Maybe what we'll do is total orders. So let's drag this off, and I'll drag orders here, and we'll do not a sum, but a count of distinct rows. We'll update that field, and we can get rid of the 2 decimal points. And it is just a number, so this will be just called total orders. And let's do one more visualization. This map is pretty cool. I'm going to drag it up like that. Let's duplicate this. And let's stretch this all the way across the bottom. Let's edit this visualization, and let's do a tree map this time. And my tree map is another hierarchical visualization display. And what we want to do with our tree map is, why don't we do some sort of shipping analysis? So we have ship date, we do country. So let's go back up here. We'll do country for this field. So let's go ahead and do a search for country. And then in my hierarchy, I want to do employee, but I don't want the employee ID. I want the employee last name. And then for the value, I want to do the number of orders. So we'll do the count again of orders. So let's do count of distinct rows. And here we have Germany, 122 orders, with each one of these sales folks having that number of orders in each country. So let's do orders per country. I'll check the box. And now we have a good looking dashboard. It's called customer analysis. And this is ready to go. So I can just check this box, and now it's going to ask me, where do I want to put this dashboard? Well, I want to organize all of my templates into a workspace or a list called app templates. So let's just call this app templates. Remember, this is in my analytics. I'm going to go to app templates. Let's do a section called dashboards V1. And I'm going to save it right there. So now this dashboard is official. It is saved. There's my customer analysis and dashboards V1. If I click it, it opens up, and you can see that all is good. Everything that I expect works as it should. But how do I get this dashboard now into Reveal? And then the other thing I want to do is, you'll notice I have Alfkey here. You can probably guess the point is that I only want each customer ID to see their data. So I don't want to see every order. I don't want to see the average freight for every order. I don't want to see all this. I just want to see each individual customer. So that's what we're going to do in Reveal. So what we can do is, in the overflow menu here, there's an export option, and it's going to allow me to export this dashboard. So when I export it, it will actually export to what's called an R- file. So I'm going to select dashboard. I'm going to go to my desktop. I already have something called customer order analysis here. So let's just save this as customer analysis, and we'll save that. So now that R- is saved, and now I am ready to switch over to Reveal. So let's go ahead and open up Visual Studio. So here I am in Visual Studio. I already have a Reveal server set up with some of the basic things that you need just to get going with Reveal. So if you're not familiar with how to set up a server, we have quick 5-minute videos online, or you can watch one of the previous webinars and it'll walk you step by step on how to set this up. I'm not going to do that in today's video, but what I am going to highlight is that we do have the important data source provider setup. The data source provider is where you are telling Reveal what your server is. In this case, my host is my Azure instance that we talked about when I created the data catalog item in Slingshot, and then my database is Northwind Cloud. And for my individual data source items that I might want to use in this application, I'm not doing anything here. I'm just going to load up my database. The authentication happens in the authentication provider, and then we're going to look at the user context provider in a minute. So I'm just going to go ahead and run this Reveal server. And if you've seen any of the previous videos, you know that we have Swagger enabled in the Reveal server. You can turn that off, of course, in the program CS, but here I have my Swagger file. Now, the way that you know if the Reveal server is up and running, I can type in the name of a dashboard that it might have on the server, and then I get the JSON returned back. But one thing we need to do is, you'll notice here in my dashboards folder, I just have some of the sample dashboards. I didn't import that customer analysis dashboard that we saved to the desktop. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to add, and I will do an existing item. We'll go to the desktop of my computer here, and there's our customer analysis RDash. I'll go ahead and click add, and now that is in my application. So I'm able now to view this from a Reveal client. So let's go ahead and hit run, and that will do the same thing it just did. It'll fire up that Swagger file. Now I'm going to go over to Visual Studio Code, and this is a basic HTML and JavaScript for loading a Reveal dashboard. You'll see we have our dependencies that are required for Reveal. I'm using my set base URL to tell it where my server is at, which is HTTPS localhost 7006. How do you know that? You know that because in our Swagger it says 7006 up here, 7006. So that's where my Reveal server is running. And then, of course, this is the code to load a dashboard, and you'll see that I have customer analysis already entered. So if I right click, open this up in the browser, we will see my customer analysis dashboard just like it was in Slingshot. So super easy. I didn't have to do really any work. Everything was done in Slingshot. And then I just told Reveal to load up this dashboard. Now, what is the next step? The next step really is we want to emulate a logged in user. So in the Northwind database customers table, there are a bunch of different customer IDs, and that drives everything for Northwind. It drives the orders, the order details, all the shipping information, etc. And in my customer info visualization here, I wanted to display the customer ID, the country, and the city, and this is just taking the first item. So it says Alfke, but this is the data for all of the customers here. So it's not just the Alfke data. So how can we make this work? Well, what we can do is use two features in Reveal. The first one is using that change data source item async to customize the query that will limit the data that we're going to send. And then the second is using something called set additional headers on the client, which will allow you to pass a header to the server like a user ID, a customer ID, etc., that you can use in a query. So I happen to have index load dashboard headers here, and this has that scheme set up. So in my page, I've added a select, and this select is a dropdown. You can see it has Alfke, Blonde P, a root. So 3 different customers from the Northwind customers table. And then I have something called admin. And actually, I'm going to type in admin here. That's the value that I want. So I have admin, admin, and I'm going to pretend that an admin is allowed to see all of the data. And then if you log in with a customer only ID, then you just see your customer data. So how is that working? Well, what I did on the customer select is I added an event listener. And when the click event occurs, I'm going to grab the selected index of the combo box, and that selected index will then give me the selected value, which I will set into selected value, which I am going to pass in an array for headers. This one's called xheader1, and I want to pass a selected value. How does that actually get back to the Reveal server? Through the set additional headers provider. So this is the secret sauce in ensuring that if you are setting any headers here on the client, they get passed back to the server. With the set additional headers provider, it is taking the URL set in the base URL, and then in the server, no matter what I'm passing here, which in this case is going to be one of these 4 items, I can use that in the server. So let's go back to the server and set this up. So here, if I jump back into Visual Studio, I can go to the user context provider. And you'll notice here that in the change data source item async, I'm looking at the user context, or actually the user context is available to the change data source item async and the change data source async. So in the user context provider, basically we're getting the HTTP context, which is that header that's being passed in. And in this case, I am setting the header value for xheader1 to this user ID property. I'm only going to use user ID in this particular sample. If I had like user ID, company ID, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, I could simply create a dictionary of properties, and I could pass that to the user context along with the user ID. So in this case, user ID equals the xheader1. If it ends up being empty or blank, I'm going to default to ALFKey, but it won't be because we are going to pass it in every time. So then how do I use this user ID? So if I go back to the data source provider, that's where the change data source item async comes into play. So I already have an if statement here that says if we're dealing with an Azure data source item, then I want to ensure that we do set the host and database, but I also want to check what the incoming table is and then set the user context.user ID in the query to get that data. So how do we do that? We can do that with a simple if statement. So in this case, I'm just going to let my IntelliSense give me some boilerplate code here, but I don't want to say if the DSI data source equals null. I want to say if the SQL DSI.table equals customers, which of course customers is part of our join. SQL DSI is what I've casted my data source item as. So I have all of these properties available to me. So in this case, I can say SQL DSI and then dot, and then you'll see here I have a bunch of different properties: subtitle, data source, custom query, all of these things. So I'm going to use custom query. So I'm going to say if it is the customers table, I want to say select star from customers, and I am going to hard code this initially. I'm going to say where customer ID equals ALFKey. So we're going to do an ALFKey here, and let's do a double quote here, and we'll slide over to the right and single quote, double quote, like so. So now what's going to happen is when that dashboard tries to load, it's going to hit the user context provider. The user context provider is going to pull in whatever's in the HB context. If there's nothing there, it'll be null. We're actually not using this yet. But then it goes to the data source provider. It checks that there is a host and database, and then it'll check the change data source item async. In this case, I have customers, and I'm going to say select star from customers where customer ID equals ALFKey. Now it's just going to always just give me the ALFKey data. So we'll go ahead and refresh that. We'll go back to our original dashboard, and I'm going to just refresh this, and you're going to notice a change here. So ALFKey still shows up. My freight goes lower. And by the way, if you caught this, I realized this later on, and I didn't change it when I was creating the dashboard. This really isn't average freight. So if we go into edit mode and we look at this, I still did this sum. So to change it to actual average, I would select average, update the field. Now there's my average freight. And so we're correct now. The nice thing is this is reveal. So when I check this box, it automatically saved that. So now it's truly the average freight. But you also notice here that I only have Germany, and I only have the orders per country here by salesperson, which also looks pretty good. And in this case too, if I click edit, I can make this particular visualization like a little bit smaller, maybe so we don't have to scroll to see it. So there I have the full tree map there. So how do I do this dynamically? That's where that user context comes into play. So I'm going to change this query here, and I'm not going to say where it equals ALFKey. I'm going to say where the customer ID equals plus my user context dot what? Of course, the user ID. And then we'll do a plus, close out that quote, single quote, and we'll put our semicolon. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass in the user context at user ID that gets picked up by the HTTP context into this property here. And that's how I can dynamically load data on demand based on my simulated login from the client. So let's go back here, and I'm back to my index load dashboard, and I will select one of these three items. We'll leave admin alone for a second. So let's open this up in the browser. Let's select Alfke, and you can see I get the same data that I previously had here in this dashboard. Now let's go ahead and select Blonde P. Now it's passing that over. Now I don't have Blonde P. So what's going on here? Let's go to a root. So let's go back to Visual Studio. We need to refresh. We didn't reset our server. And let's go back here now and let us select our root. And now you can see we have a root, average freight 3630, total orders 13, and my country's different. And then of course all my orders per country are different. If I go to Blonde P, then here we have Blonde P. So let's just add one more if statement on our server. And here, if the SQL DSI.table equals customers, we want to leave that. And I'm going to say if, and we'll do the same thing here. We'll just accept some defaults and we'll wrap this up into another if statement. And I'm going to say if the user context that user ID does not equal, we'll just say admin, then I want to ensure that I pass the user context at user ID. Otherwise, this user should see everything. So we'll go ahead and refresh this again. We'll go back and let's refresh our client. I'm going to select admin. I have all of the data here. This isn't the best visualization for this particular scenario, so you might want to put a table in here or something else. But now if I go to Alfke, now there's my Alfke data. There's my Blonde P, and there is my root. So that's how easy it is to create a dashboard in Slingshot, then use it in Reveal, and then in Reveal, we are doing some row-level security and limiting what the end user will see in their dashboard based on their login by taking advantage of the user context provider capability and the change data source item async in the data source provider. Okay, so hopefully you got a great idea on how you can start to incorporate Slingshot into your workflow with Reveal. And we're continuing to improve this experience. So one of the things that we're looking at is how to export multiple dashboards at once. So let's say you create like 10 dashboards. You don't want to have to go save each one at a time. And then ultimately this will allow you to then get those dashboards into your process. So however you are doing the process of dashboard creation, checking into maybe some source control, rolling out to customers, you always have that single source of truth in Slingshot. So let's go ahead and answer the poll. I think JJ or Jesse has started that poll up. So as you answer questions in the poll, I'll just keep going and we'll leave the webinar on for a few minutes to make sure that we got all of your questions answered, not only in the chat and the Q&A, but also in the poll. So to wrap up, enabling BI in your applications is simple with Reveal and Slingshot. You saw how easy it was to create a dashboard. Well, first of all, just connect to data. And that's the thing, like when you start using the Reveal SDK and you're just looking at Reveal, you have to wait for your developers to stand up the server, do all the stuff they need to do on the back end. Maybe your developers aren't ready yet. Maybe they can't start this for 3 days, but you want to start creating dashboards today. That's really the value Slingshot brings, is you can start getting immediate satisfaction on dashboard creation on day one instead of waiting for the server to get stood up. So enabling this is super simple. So you can create, organize, and collaborate on dashboards in Slingshot. You can drive that full-featured BI, self-service BI in Reveal. And then when you combine both Reveal and Slingshot, you can really deliver these applications 10 times faster when you're using all of the tooling that's available to you to do that level of delivery. So hopefully that came across in the demo. If you want more details on Slingshot, shoot me an email. And of course, if you're looking for embedded BI with Reveal, shoot me an email as well, or just contact sales@revealbi.io and get started today. So I want to thank everyone again for joining us today in the webinar. But before we do that, of course, try Slingshot at slingshotapp.io. I forgot I injected that slide there at the end. So definitely try Reveal and Slingshot and get going. Contact sales at either slingshot.io or revealbi.io, and we will get back to you promptly. And I do want to thank you again. I know your time is being pulled in many directions nowadays, so thank you for joining us in this webinar today. I'll stay on for a few more minutes, answer any last questions, and as you wrap up the poll, but I appreciate it. It is December. I hope you all have at least a little time off over the next few weeks, and we will see you in the new year with more fun, exciting new features in Reveal and Slingshot, and of course, App Builder, all of Infragistics products. Have a great rest of the month, and we'll see you at the next webinar.